podcast where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to row-out facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, where we challenge conventional wisdom and spark the conversations that matter most in dairy farming. I'm your host, bringing you the industry's most provocative analysis and game-changing insights. Today, we're diving deep into what might be the most important shift in cattle health management since the development of modern veterinary medicine. We're talking about smart sensors, internal monitoring technology, and why visual observation, the foundation of herd health for over 60 years, is not just inadequate, but actively costing you money. You're about to hear some uncomfortable truths about reactive medicine, discover why Austrian technology is disrupting North American dairy, and learn how early adopters are capturing 7.8 times return on investment, while their neighbors are still walking pens with thermometers. This episode is based on our comprehensive investigation, Silent Losses, Loud Profits, how smart sensors are saving producers $200+ per cow annually. Research that's already generating heated discussions across the industry. Whether you're skeptical about new technology or ready to revolutionize your operation, what you're about to hear will challenge everything you thought you knew about herd health management. Let's get started.
Okay, imagine this for a second, right there on your dairy. You're losing significant money, like serious money, but it's happening silently. You might not even grasp the full scale of it.
Exactly.
Our latest Bullvine article, it's called Cattle Sensors, Silent Profits, Loud Returns. Well, it kicks off with a number, a statistic really, that should honestly make you question, well, pretty much everything you thought you knew about managing herd health.
It's a truly staggering fact, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's really the foundation for the whole piece in the Bullvine. Visual observation, the method we've all relied on forever, it misses something like 40% of sick cows. A full 40%.
40%?
Yeah. And look, that's not just some, academic number. If you're running a dairy, that 40%, well, it's a massive whole bleeding cash from your bottom line. And for way too many producers, it's a loss they literally aren't even seeing.
Right. But then the article shifts gears pretty quickly, doesn't it? It brings in the solution, or at least a solution, smart sensors. It makes a strong case, backed by data, that this tech can spot critical issues like mastitis maybe 4 whole days earlier than even the most experienced eye could.
4 days?
Yeah, 4 days. And that's not just, finding it a bit sooner. It's about unlocking potentially substantial returns and maybe more importantly, finally plugging that quiet, insidious financial leak that's, it's been plaguing the industry for decades, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And the key insight here, I think, is that the Bullvine article isn't just showing off some new gadget. No, it's fundamentally challenging the core assumptions, the reactive habits that have guided dairy health for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal for us here in this deep dive is really to unpack why those traditional visual methods are costing the industry billions, yes, billions with a B, and, shed light on how these forward-thinking producers are already using this stuff to get a massive, almost unfair competitive edge.
That's exactly it. This isn't just another tech review. It's a direct challenge, you could even say provocative, to the status quo. And it's crucial, I think, to get this. It's not just about getting a little bit better at treating sick cows. That's where we usually focus, right? Our efforts, our money.
Yeah, the treatment side.
But the article hints at something deeper. It's about seeing inside the apparently healthy cows before they show even the tiniest outward sign. This isn't a small tweak. It's not just an upgrade. It's a fundamental, paradigm shift in how we manage dairy health, moving from constant firefighting to something truly proactive, predictive, and, ultimately a heck of a lot more profitable.
Exactly. You've hit the nail on the head. It's moving from managing what you can see to managing what you know is happening internally, often days before you'd ever spot anything wrong visually. Think about it. Instead of reacting to a crisis, you're stopping it before it starts, or, stepping in when it's still a tiny, manageable thing. That changes everything. Staffing, labor allocation, even who makes the decisions on the farm. It really is a new era of data-driven dairy intelligence.
Okay, so let's dig into this idea of silent bleeding. The Bovine article jumps right into the uncomfortable numbers around mastitis costs. And it bases this on some really solid Michigan State University research. This wasn't a tiny study, was it?
Oh, not at all. It was comprehensive. They tracked, get this, 20,625 mastitis cases. 20,000 across 37 different Wisconsin dairy farms. So these aren't like theoretical projections. These are real numbers from real working dairy.
Raw data.
Absolutely. And that solid base really helps us understand the economic hit. What's really striking, though, is the range in the average cost per case. It could be as low as, say, $108, or it could shoot all the way up to $337. That's a big swing.
Huge difference.
But when you break down that cost, one thing just leaps out. Milk discard. If you're using intramammary treatments, throwing that milk away accounts for a massive 87% of the total cost. 87%.
Wow. So most of the financial damage is just milk you produce but can't sell.
Precisely. Milk you've already paid to produce feed, labor, everything just going down the drain.
But here's the part from that MSU study that honestly should make every producer stop and think. It found that nearly a third, 31% of these mastitis cases got no antimicrobial treatment at all. None.
Right. No antibiotic.
And yet they still cost farmers an average of $192 per case. That really changes how we think about the cost, doesn't it? It's not just about the drugs or the vet bill.
Exactly. It forces you to ask, well, what's in that $192 if there's no treatment cost? And the answer is, it's the lost production from that quarter, even if it's temporary.
Yeah.
It's the potential impact on future lactations. It's the extra labor, handling that cow, monitoring her. And it's the risk of it becoming a worse case later if it doesn't fully resolve. It really shows the inherent cost of just being sick, even without factoring in treatment. Productivity loss, labor, long-term effects. It all adds up.
Okay, so that brings us to what the Bovine article calls the lie, or maybe, the deeply held but flawed assumption that just looking at cows, visual observation, and clinical exams is the best way to assess health, the gold standard. The article is pretty blunt. It says this assumption has cost the industry billions. Billions. It's like our industry's sacred cow, maybe, and it could be leading us completely astray, quietly draining profit.
Well, to build on that, the issue isn't that looking at cows is useless. Of course not. It's that it's fundamentally reactive. You only see something after it's happened internally.
Right.
The article points to some fascinating research from beyond the bolus, which gives really concrete and sometimes uncomfortable examples, like cows identified as sick just by looking at them. They already have clear, obvious clinical symptoms.
So it's not subtle anymore.
Not at all. Which means the disease has probably been brewing inside for a while, often past the point where you can intervene really effectively and cheaply.
So by the time you finally spot that, slightly droopy ear, or maybe she's just not quite right on her feed or off her feed, the clock hasn't just been ticking. It's basically run out on the most profitable time to step in.
Precisely. Another great example from that research is bovine respiratory disease, BRD. The clinical signs we look for, coughing, nasal discharge, they might show up way later than the actual fever started. Or sometimes, believe it or not, maybe without any fever at all.
Really? No fever?
Yeah, it happens. And with calf scours, neonatal diarrhea, you only see the obvious signs, the scouring itself, after there's already been significant damage inside to the gut lining. The damage is already done or well underway. You're basically responding to the aftermath, not stopping it early.
So what's the bottom line for your operation listening to this? It means by the time your eyes or your team's eyes tell you a cow is sick, that optimal window for intervention, it's probably already slammed shut.
Yeah, likely gone.
You're not really doing proactive health management anymore. You're doing, like the article says, herd damage control, just reacting to problems that have already dug in. It's like finding the flood in the basement after it's happened instead of fixing that tiny drip you could have caught days ago.
That's a great analogy.
And that means higher treatment costs, longer recovery, maybe even permanent hits to her production. It's just expensive.
And the bovine article makes a really strong case that this reactive approach, well, maybe it was all we had historically, just isn't economically smart anymore. Not in today's competitive dairy world. Waiting just costs too much.
Okay, so beyond those internal costs of, well, basically guesswork, there's this huge external pressure building too. The regulatory world is shifting under our feet. The Bovine article makes it crystal clear. Antibiotic use, regulations, it's not some far-off issue anymore. It's here now, affecting producers daily.
Yeah, you really have to understand the direction things have been moving for a while now. Look at the EU major dairy player, right? They banned antibiotic growth promoters way back in 1999. 1999.
That was early.
Very early. Then the US FDA brought in major restrictions on medically important antibiotics in 2017. These weren't random events. They were signals of a big global shift. And some recent research in Nature Communications, well, the numbers are pretty stark. Business as usual. Global antibiotic use in livestock could hit like 143,000 tons by 2040.
Wow.
That's nearly a 30% increase from where we are now. It's huge.
And that's not just chickens and pigs, right? That includes us, cattle.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Cattle farming is actually projected to be the biggest slice of that pie, currently around 53.5% of all global livestock antimicrobial use. So, yeah, cattle producers are right in the spotlight for future regulations and, public pressure.
So connecting that back, while some farms might really struggle trying to make old reactive protocols work as rules tighten, the article suggests these forward-thinking farms, the ones using proactive, data-driven health management, they're finding it's not just about ticking compliance boxes, is it?
Not at all. They're finding it's actually dramatically more profitable. It sounds counterintuitive maybe, but by getting ahead of the curve, by managing health differently, they're finding a path to better economic performance and easier compliance.
Dramatically more profitable. That's a strong claim. Does the Bovine article back that up with data?
It absolutely does. The numbers really support this. Farms that have already put in continuous monitoring systems, they're seeing disease incidence drop by up to 30%, 30% fewer cases,
Significant.
and maybe even more directly hitting the wallet. They're cutting vet costs by about 25%. That's not pocket change. These are real substantial improvements. Think about what that means day to day. Fewer vet calls, less drug spending, less milk dumped, healthier cows. It all flows straight to the bottom line. It's about being efficient and proactive, not just constantly reacting and paying for it.
And it's not just the regulators pushing this change, is it? The article brings up another huge factor. Us, the consumers, people want antibiotic-free products more and more. That creates, well, a bit of a double-edged sword, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a crucial point. On one side, yes, this huge consumer demand creates these amazing premium market opportunities. If you can reliably produce milk that meets those antibiotic-free or raised without antibiotic standards, there are often better prices and new markets available.
Right, the upside.
But the other edge of that sword, it creates intense pressure, almost existential pressure, for producers who haven't figured out alternative ways to manage health without relying heavily on antibiotics. The market is sending a very clear signal. The old way isn't the only way anymore, and maybe it's rapidly becoming not the preferred way. That pressure isn't going away. If anything, it's growing.
So the stakes are really high. Compliance, market access, basic economic survival. The article puts a number on the bigger picture too, the global cost of dairy cattle diseases. What was it?
An absolutely mind-boggling $65 billion annually, globally.
$65 billion, that really puts the scale of the problem in perspective.
It does. And to make it even more concrete, to bring it down from that huge global number, the Bovine article zooms in on just one specific, often silent condition, subclinical ketosis.
Ah, yes, the sneaky one.
Exactly. It doesn't always show obvious signs, right? The cow isn't dramatically off-feed or down, but it's there. And that alone accounts for an estimated $18 billion in losses globally. $18 billion.
Just from subclinical ketosis.
Just from that one condition. Because it quietly eats away at profits. Lower feed intake, lower peak milk, poorer repro performance makes them more susceptible to other things like mastitis or DAs. It perfectly illustrates the point. Even things you can't easily see are financially devastating.
Yeah.
They're eroding your profitability under the surface, often completely missed by traditional reactive management.
So whether it's regulations tightening, consumers demanding change, or these hidden costs just bleeding you dry, the message from the Bovine article seems loud and clear. The industry is at a tipping point. Standing still isn't really an option anymore. Which leads us perfectly into this idea of a revolution from within. The Bovine article really highlights this, pointing to it not just as a solution, but maybe the groundbreaking approach. And it features SmaXtec, that Austrian company. It says they've been, quietly revolutionizing European dairy management since 2009.
Yeah, SmaXtec. Their approach really cuts against that good enough mindset of just looking at the outside of the cow, the external monitoring that, let's be honest, many operations still rely on.
So what do they do differently? What's the core idea?
Well, what's really cool is how they basically figured out how to turn each cow into her own super accurate internal health monitor. It's not just about sticking a tag on her ear or a collar on her neck. It's about putting a sophisticated sensor inside her. Inside, right in the reticulum, actually. That's where it can get the most stable, most accurate readings of her core physiology.
And that's the bolus the article talks about, right? Explain that tech a bit more.
Exactly, the bolus. It's the heart of their system. It's this battery-powered sensor housed in a durable ceramic casing. And it just sits there safely in the cow's reticulum for up to 5 years, doing its job.
5 years. Wow.
Yeah, long life. And because it's inside, in that stable core environment, it can continuously measure key internal signs with incredible accuracy. It's not guessing based on outside activity. It's getting direct internal data. That's a fundamental difference from external sensors.
And the article gets specific about what it measures, and the accuracy is pretty mind-blowing. Core body temp, it says, with clinical grade accuracy, plus or minus 0.018 degrees Fahrenheit. That seems incredibly precise for something inside a cow.
It is incredibly precise. And that's crucial because core body temp is such a stable early warning sign. It changes often before anything else when there's metabolic stress or an infection starting.
Okay, so temperature. What else?
Well, beyond temp, it continuously tracks individual water intake. They have this patented tech called true drinking. And that's huge because subtle shifts in how much or how often a cow drinks can be one of the very first signs something's up, sometimes even before her temperature spikes.
Interesting. Water intake first.
Often, yeah. It also measures rumination activity precisely using their TruRumia sensors. That gives you a direct window into her digestive health, her comfort.
Yeah.
Because rumination is so closely tied to how she's feeling and digesting. And optionally, you can add rumen pH monitoring too, vital for managing acidosis risk and really dialing in feed efficiency.
So it's painting this really detailed, real-time internal picture of every single animal, not just one data point. But what's the real leap here? The article used that phrase, economic time travel. What does that mean in practice?
Yeah, economic time travel. It sounds dramatic, but it really captures the power of this early detection. The research that the article cites shows pretty clearly that these internal temperature changes, they can show up 4 full days before you'd see any visual signs of something like mastitis.
4 days earlier.
4 days. That's not just early detection. That is a massive leap forward. It literally buys you time. Time to step in proactively, maybe with something less aggressive, less expensive. Time to prevent a full-blown crisis. Time to save a ton of money on discarded milk, drugs, labor.
Right, yeah.
That's the economic time travel. You get to act before the big economic damage starts piling up. Think about treating subclinical mastitis with maybe just a supportive therapy or a small management change instead of waiting until it's clinical and needs antibiotics and a week of dumped milk. That's the power of that extra time. It enables precision intervention.
And it's not just spitting out raw numbers, is it? The article mentions the AI side, the artificial intelligence driving the diagnostics. That seems key.
Oh, absolutely key, because raw data is just data. You need intelligence to make it useful. The AI in this system is constantly analyzing all those different data streams, temp, water, rumination, pH, maybe all at the same time. It learns each cow's normal baseline, looks for deviations, compares patterns across the herd.
So it's pattern recognition.
Exactly. Complex pattern recognition. It's not just a simple alert like temperature's high. It's much smarter. For instance, a high temp with normal rumination, but a drop in water intake. That suggests something different than a high temp where rumination is crash and rumen pH is low.
Yeah.
That might point more towards acidosis. Right?
Makes sense. Different patterns, different problems.
Precisely. So the system gives you what the article calls qualified diagnostic leads. It's not just a raw alert dump that leaves you guessing. It's giving you actionable intelligence, pointing you towards the likely issue, so you can make a much more informed, targeted decision about what to do next. It moves you from guesswork to data-driven confidence.
Okay, this all sounds incredibly advanced, incredibly promising, but, on a dairy, it always comes down to the dollars and cents, doesn't it? Does it actually pay? The Bovine article tackles this head-on with results from an independent study, that 2024 IFCN study. And the numbers aren't small, are they? They're the kind of numbers that, maybe should terrify your competition.
Yeah, the findings from that IFCN study are really quite something. They provide solid proof. They documented on average a $210 per cow increase in returns. $210
Per cow.
per cow per year. And on top of that, another $190 per cow in just straight up additional income. So you put those together, that's $400 per cow in improved profitability.
$400 per cow.
And it wasn't just money. They also saw significant bumps in milk yield 330 kilograms of solids corrected milk annually. And solids corrected milk, it's a better measure because it accounts for the energy, the fat and protein content, not just raw volume, gives you a truer picture of output.
Right, quality matters.
Exactly. And the study's overall conclusion was pretty broad. It had a positive effect on the most important indicators like milk yield, labor, returns, income, and carbon footprint. So not just hitting one target, but improving things across the board.
Okay, let's put those numbers into perspective, make them real. The article helps here. On a, say, 500 cow dairy, what does that look like?
Well, you do the math. $210 per cow times 500 cows.
Yeah.
That's $105,000 in additional returns. And the $190 per cow in extra income, that's another $95,000.
Wow.
So yeah, you're looking at around $200,000 in direct financial gain just for those two metrics alone every single year. That's substantial.
That really drives home the point, doesn't it? Some might hesitate over the upfront cost of technology like this, but those numbers show it's not really an expense. It's an investment, a strategic one with a potentially massive and rapid return.
Absolutely. This is where those huge competitive advantages are being built right now. While some farms are still, walking pens, reacting to what they see, others are leveraging this data and capturing that value. They're essentially leaving money on the table if they don't adapt.
And it's not just theoretical studies. The bovine article includes a really powerful real-world example, doesn't it? Amber Horn Leiterman, milking over 2,100 cows up in Brillion, Wisconsin. That's boots-on-the-ground proof.
Yeah, her story is incredibly compelling because it's from a large, successful commercial operation. Her numbers are stunning. She calculated, get this, a 7.8 times return on her investment. Almost 8x ROI.
8 times? Based on what?
Based only on improvements in her cull rate. Just from making smarter, earlier decisions about which cows needed to leave the herd. That alone gave her an almost 8x return. And the total savings, just within her replacement program, from better culling and management, it exceeded $500,000 in 2023. $500,000.
$500,000 just from that aspect.
Just from that. And she really believes in the approach. The article quotes her directly. The inner body temperature monitoring that SmaXtec provides has been a game changer for us. The inner temperature allows us to provide preventative and supportive care to our cows and helps catch inflammation and metabolic issues in transition cows before these issues get out of hand.
That focus on preventative and supportive care really stands out. It's not about waiting for disaster.
Exactly. It's not waiting for the full-blown expensive illness. It's catching those subtle signs, the early inflammation, the metabolic wobbles, especially those vulnerable transition cows, before they spiral out of control into something really serious and costly. It ties right back to that economic time travel idea, acting days ahead of the visible problem.
And the article makes it clear the benefits go beyond just stopping sickness, right? It mentions big gains in reproductive efficiency too, which, let's face it, is huge for dairy profitability.
Oh, absolutely fundamental. Better repro drives everything. The article highlights that Wisconsin producers using this kind of smart bolus tech were achieving really precise heat detection, pinpoint accuracy. And that led to pregnancy rates approaching 30%.
30% preg rates? That's top tier.
Top tier, exactly. And what does that mean practically? It means fewer days open. That time between calving and getting pregnant again shrinks dramatically. And every day you shave off the days open, average across the herd, saves money. Because every day a cow isn't pregnant when she should be, or isn't progressing efficiently to her next lactation. That's lost income. Historically, missing a heat cycle, extending days open by just 10 days, could cost $30 per cow. Eliminate those misses with accurate detection. The savings pile up fast.
So it really is this compounding advantage. The article loops back to that MSU research again, pointing out that just shortening mastitis treatment by 1 day saves about $65 per case.
Right. Now, connect that back. If these sensors let you detect problems 4 days earlier than just looking, what does that mean?
You're not just saving a bit on the initial treatment.
Exactly. You're unlocking these competitive advantages that build on each other across the whole operation. Every day of treatment you cut, every severe case you prevent, every heat cycle you catch perfectly, every culling decision you make smarter. It all adds up. It compounds. It's not just an advantage. It becomes an exponential advantage in efficiency, profitability, and animal welfare too. It fundamentally separates the operations embracing this from those sticking to the old ways.
Now, while these sensors are clearly changing the game on the detection side, the bovine article also looks ahead, doesn't it? It shifts focus to the future of treatment, and it introduces something pretty fascinating. Antimicrobial peptides, or AMPs, describes them as nature's answer to resistance. That sounds hopeful.
It really does. It's an intriguing development. The article introduces Peptobiotics, a startup out of Singapore that's actively working on engineering these things. AMPs, basically, are nature's own antibiotics. You find them everywhere in biology: bacteria, plants, animals, us.
Really? We have them too?
We do. And they show huge promise for being effective against a lot of different bugs. But, and this is the crucial part, without carrying the same high risk of bacteria developing resistance that we're constantly battling with conventional antibiotics. This could be a massive deal for the long-term sustainability of animal health.
Okay, how do they actually work? Why are they less prone to resistance? The article mentions PMC research on their mechanism.
Right. So unlike our traditional antibiotics, which usually target a very specific process inside the bacteria, like building a cell wall or making a protein, something the bacteria can often mutate to get around.
Find a workaround.
Exactly. AMPs work differently. They're more like physical attackers. They directly mess with the bacterial cell membrane itself. Imagine them punching holes in the outer wall of the bacteria.
Like little molecular battering rams.
Kind of, yeah. They disrupt the membrane, cause the cell contents to leak out, and the bacteria basically dies.
Yeah.
And because they attack that fundamental structure, the cell membrane, it's much, much harder for bacteria to evolve resistance.
Wow.
They'd have to completely change their basic structure, which is way harder than just tweaking one internal enzyme. It's a really different, more robust way to go after them.
A whole different strategy. So is it working? Are there studies showing effectiveness?
Yeah, the early signs are definitely promising. Studies have shown AMPs are effective against some really important livestock pathogens, including Staphylococcus aureus, which, as you know, causes a lot of persistent, costly mastitis in dairy herds.
Big problem, Staph aureus.
Huge. And they've shown significant antibacterial effects, both in the lab that's in vitro and in live animal studies in vivo. So it's moving beyond theory. This could be a critical tool for future-proofing our treatment options against that ever-growing threat of antibiotic resistance, letting us keep animals healthy while maybe relying less on the old standbys.
So for the producers listening, thinking about their own herds, how soon could this be a reality? Is it something available for cattle now?
The timeline question. Always important. The bovine article clarifies that right now, Peptobiotics seems to be focusing mainly on aquaculture, fish farming, and poultry.
Okay, not cattle yet.
Not yet announced for cattle in North America. Those sectors often have really acute disease issues where resistance is a massive problem, making them good places to prove the tech first. But, and this is a big good, but they just raised $6.2 million in Series A funding back in April 2024.
Serious money.
Very serious money. That signals major investor confidence. They believe this technology has a real future, a big market potential. It's not just a science project anymore.
So it's not here today for dairy, but the investment suggests it's definitely on the horizon.
Exactly. It looks like a classic beachhead strategy. You prove your technology works, prove it's commercially viable in these initial markets like fish and chickens where the need is urgent. Then, once you've got that foothold, you expand into the bigger opportunities like cattle.
Right. Establish a base camp.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So it feels less like a question of if this kind of technology comes to dairy and more a question of when. And for producers thinking strategically, knowing this is coming helps shape how you plan for a future that might rely less on the conventional antibiotics we use today.
You know, all this talk about advanced monitoring, AI, new treatments, it brings us to another really profound disruption the bovine article touches on. And this one isn't just about technology, it's about relationships. Specifically, the relationship between the producer and the veterinarian. Smart monitoring seems to fundamentally challenge the way vets have done business for decades.
It really does. It's a fascinating transformation that it demands, or maybe enables. Veterinarians are kind of shifting or being asked to shift from being primarily the emergency responders, right? The person you call when a cow is down or there's a crisis.
The fire brigade.
Exactly. Shifting from that to becoming more like strategic, data-savvy health advisors. It's a whole different way of thinking about their role on the farm. Moving from just fixing acute problems to proactively planning for long-term health and prevention.
And the article captures this perfectly with that quote from Dr. Rachel Budd at Metzger Veterinary Services. She really nails the shift, doesn't she?
She really does. Her quote is so insightful. She says, there are actually a lot of things that we get called on farm to do as dairy vets that the farmer is more than capable of handling themselves. We're trying to provide training and tools, number one, but also some new technologies that'll help people be more self-sufficient.
More self-sufficient, but also more collaborative.
Exactly. It's about empowering the producer to handle more routine stuff confidently, using the data, which then frees up the vet's time and expertise for the more complex strategic overview.
So how does this tech, this continuous internal monitoring, actually make that shift happen in practice? How does it change the day-to-day interaction?
Well, think about it. Instead of most vet interactions being those reactive farm calls for individual sick cows, this technology allows vets to remotely review continuous data streams from the entire herd, or specific groups anyway.
Right, seeing the trends.
Seeing the subtle changes before they become big problems. This enables truly proactive consultation, often remotely. Vets can move beyond just diagnosing and treating the sick ones. They become interpreters of complex data, advisors recommending preventative strategies before things go wrong, and objective evaluators of how well treatments are actually working using real-time evidence.
So instead of me calling the vet saying, cow 123 looks off, the vet might call me.
Potentially, yeah. Imagine your vet calling you and saying, hey, I was looking at the data for Pen 3, the fresh cows, seeing a little dip in rumination and water intake across a few of them compared to last week. Did you change the ration recently? Let's look into that. That's a completely different interaction than waiting for you to spot a clinical case days later. It's moving from crisis management to proactive optimization.
Okay, but doesn't that kind of wreck the traditional vet business model? The one based on charging per visit, per procedure, the billable hour, if they're doing more remote advising?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And yes, it absolutely challenges that traditional model. But the forward-thinking practices, the ones adapting, are already finding new ways. The Bovine article mentions the rise of subscription-based remote monitoring services.
Like a retainer?
Sort of, yeah. It's a bit more like a comprehensive health management plan for your herd. You pay a regular fee, and in return, you get continuous oversight, proactive advice, data analysis. The goal shifts. It becomes about the vet helping you prevent problems and maintain health, rather than just charging you to fix things after they break.
A health insurance that tries to prevent claims.
That's a perfect way to put it. It creates a real win-win. The vet gets stable, predictable income and gets to use their expertise more strategically. The producer gets consistent proactive management, likely fewer costly emergencies, better overall herd health, and potentially higher productivity. It transforms the relationship from just a service provider to a true integrated partner in the farm's success.
Okay, so for everyone listening, the farmers, the industry pros trying to figure out how to navigate all this, let's talk practical steps. Let's talk about your evidence-based disruption roadmap. Because the Bovine article doesn't just lay out the problems and the cool tech. It gives you a concrete plan, actionable steps you can start thinking about, maybe even taking today.
Yeah, and what's really useful, I think, is that it breaks it down into a clear 3-month strategy. It's not just throwing ideas out there, it's a phased approach. Month by month, here's how you can start integrating this thinking, this technology, and begin to capture that competitive edge fairly quickly.
All right, let's walk through it. Month 1, reality assessment. What are the key actions producers need to take right at the start?
Okay, month 1 is all about getting a really honest picture of where you are right now. Ground zero. First, you absolutely need to calculate your current mastitis costs. Use that MSU research range we talked about, the $118 to $337 per case, and apply it to your own records. What is reactive management actually costing you? Get a real number.
Know your baseline.
Exactly. At the same time, look at your existing herd management software. Can it integrate with these continuous monitoring systems? Does it have APIs? Can data flow easily? You need to know the tech landscape on your farm. And crucially, schedule a sit-down with your vet. Not just the usual herd check, but a specific conversation about moving beyond purely reactive protocols. Talk about how you can partner differently using data. It's about setting that foundation for change based on your current reality.
Okay, that makes sense. Month 1, know thyself, know thy costs. Then month 2, technology evaluation. What happens next?
Right. Month 2 is when you start actively looking at the solutions out there. Get demos from the monitoring system providers. But, and this is important, focus on the ones who have published peer-reviewed research validating their claims. Don't just go by the glossy brochures. Look for independent proof.
Evidence-based?
Definitely. And review case studies. Find examples from farms that are similar to yours in size, maybe management style. How did they implement it? What challenges did they face? What results did they really get? This helps you see how it might work in your specific situation. And finally, start sketching out an implementation timeline. Think strategically. How can you get ahead of the curve, start reaping those early adopter benefits, whether it's better efficiency or maybe access to premium markets down the road?
Got it. Research, validate, plan. Now, month 3. Competitive advantage implementation. This is where the rubber meets the road.
This is where you start making it happen. The article suggests starting with a subset of your cows. Don't necessarily jump in with the whole herd right away.
A pilot group.
Exactly. A pilot group. Test it out. Validate that the system performs well in your specific barns, with your specific routines, your team. Make sure it works for you before scaling up. Then, establish your new baseline metrics. Track health costs, treatments, production outcomes with the system in place. This way, you can accurately measure the impact against where you started in month 1. See the ROI clearly.
Measure the change.
Measure the change. And probably the most critical piece, train your staff. This isn't just about installing hardware. Your team needs to learn how to interpret this new stream of data, how to trust it, how to act on it differently than just relying on visual cues. It's a skill shift. Empowering them to use these insights effectively is key to getting the full value. This whole 3-month plan gives you a structured way to move from reactive to proactive, setting yourself up for the future.
So as we kind of pull all these threads together from this deep dive into cattle sensors, silent profits, loud returns, the main takeaway from the Bovine article feels really stark, almost unavoidable, doesn't it? This industry habit, this addiction maybe to reactive medicine, it's not just inefficient, it's actively propping up that inefficiency and, frankly, hurting the long-term competitiveness of farms.
Yeah, it's a strong message. And what makes it so compelling are the documented benefits the article lays out. We're not talking hypotheticals here. Early adopters are capturing that $210 per cow in extra returns. They are seeing that incredible 7.8x ROI in some cases, like Amberhorn Leitermans.
While others are still debating.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the regulatory world is changing, pushing for less antibiotic use. Consumers are demanding different products and creating real market premiums that these early adopters are already grabbing. The context is shifting rapidly.
Let's circle right back to that very first statistic we talked about from Michigan State. That average mastitis cost $118 up to $337 per case. And remember, 87% of that often is just milk discard. That number isn't just some industry average anymore. For you listening right now, that range is your personal benchmark. It's the real cost of sticking with purely reactive management versus investing in this predictive tech.
And this really leads to the final crucial point. When you see documented benefits like $210 per cow in added returns, another $190 per cow, extra income, plus yield bumps like 330 kilos of solids corrected milk, this isn't just a minor improvement. It's not just another tool in the toolbox.
No.
It genuinely represents arguably the single biggest opportunity for operational advantage that the dairy industry has seen in decades. The economic argument, when you look at the current costs and the documented potential gains, is just overwhelming.
So, okay, here's the final thought we want to leave you with, something to really chew on. The big question isn't if this transformation in dairy health management is going to happen. The data, the market forces, they make it pretty clear it's inevitable. The real question is, will you lead it or will you be forced to follow?
And if you want one immediate, concrete, actionable thing you can do right now after listening to this, here it is. At your very next herd health check, sit down with your vet and do the math on your last 3 mastitis cases. Use that MSU framework's at $118 to $337 range as your guide. And don't forget to factor in that $65 per day cost for extended treatment duration the article highlighted. Calculate your specific cost. That number, right there on paper. That's your true personalized ROI benchmark for investing in predictive health technology. In an industry where the leaders are already proving 7.8x returns and building huge advantages while others stick to reactive protocols, well, waiting isn't just expensive anymore. It's becoming strategically devastating.
The evidence is overwhelming. The economics are undeniable. The question isn't whether smart sensor technology will become standard practice in the dairy industry. It's whether you'll be an early adopter capturing competitive advantages or a late adopter paying catch-up costs. This has been the Bovine Podcast, where we don't just report on industry changes, we help you get ahead of them. For the complete analysis, including detailed economic breakdowns, implementation roadmaps, and producer testimonials, visit www.thebovine.com and read our full investigation, Silent Losses, Loud Profits. You'll also find our exclusive calculator to determine your specific ROI benchmark based on your current mastitis costs. If this episode challenged your thinking or confirmed your suspicions about the future of herd health, share it with fellow producers. The Bullvine reaches over 400,000 dairy professionals monthly because we're willing to ask the hard questions and challenge the sacred cows, literally and figuratively. Subscribe to the Bullvine podcast wherever you get your shows and join our community of forward-thinking dairy professionals at thebullvine.com. Remember, in an industry where change is accelerating and margins are tightening, the cost of staying informed isn't just about knowledge, it's about survival. Until next time, this is the Bullvine, fostering transparency, sparking essential conversations, and driving positive change in the dairy industry. Keep pushing boundaries.